Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty leagues, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome into the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Dougherty. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We are done with the NFL Draft. It is behind us. It is over. Wash your hands of it. Just kidding, don't wash your hands, because there are some fantasy football implications to go over when it comes to this draft. Some talented players, some guys that we plug and play guys, some people that we might not know about, some Alvin Kamara's to figure out. I mean, this guy went from a third round pick or fourth round pick in the draft. I always think third round pick. I think it was a fourth round pick from Tennessee. And now he was kind of a pickup on the waiver wire. Whoever had him was going to do well. And now he's like, oh, you have to draft him in the first round. He's automatic first round draft pick. No questions about it. It's weird how you don't, like, in the NFL draft, they don't want, like, oh, running backs, don't draft them too early. Like, Saquon, okay, but, like, what? Don't draft a running back in the first round. Now it's all, like, you have to draft running back in the first round when it comes to fantasy drafts. But we are going to go over some of the stuff that the NFL draft brought us, some implications, now we know which teams are going to be having, these players are going to be on. Obviously, we have Saquon Barkley on the Giants. So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, Saquon will lead that. Will lead this class when it comes to fantasy implication. Will be the most sought after rookie running back likely when it comes to your fantasy drafts. Whether he goes in the first round, second round, third round, we don't know. Maybe your draft guy, your team. It depends on your league. Obviously, it depends on who. If somebody's maybe a Saquon Barkley fan or not, but. There's definitely going to be. I mean, look at last year. We had Kareem Hunt. We had Alvin Kamara. Kareem Hunt was actually a pretty highly touted pick early on, even in the season. He was coming in as a good pick. Saquon Barkley, Rashad Penny, definitely going to be up there when it comes. I mean, those are the two guys that got picked in the first round. Rashad Penny has all these records in the college, but I mean, when it comes to fantasy, you definitely need some consistency. I'm trying to figure out what I want to say. I mean, these guys. I mean, you never know, what you're going to do. What you're going to do with rookies. Obviously, there's some serious running backs. So who is it? Geis. Darius Geis had some issues, obviously, surrounding him coming into the draft. But I mean, we've had tons of stuff. I mean, we had last year. It wasn't just the. It wasn't just the Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey show. It wasn't just Kareem Hunt and Alvin Kamara. There was still guys like Joe Mixon. There was guys like Samaje Perine. There was, other players I'm just totally blanking on right now. But I mean, yeah, we've definitely had some guys who have popped when it comes to fantasy. I mean, who did we know about Chris Thompson last year on the Redskins? He ended up being one of the best fantasy players in the league for, about a month. But it looks like that we're gonna. I can go through an entire list of I've listened to my college football edition of the football podcast I do on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and you'll hear me for the week leading into the draft talking about those running backs and how deep the running back class is, and all those guys are going to be plug and play guys likely, and they're going to get some serious touches and can find the end zone. I mean, I could list them off. I mean, they're obviously Saquon, Darius Geis, Ronald Jones, Royce Freeman, Sony Michel, Kerryon Johnson, Nick Chubb, Rashad Penny. I mean, we're also going to. I mean, the fact that we also have some receivers to talk about too is pretty cool. Last year wasn't really big receivers; it was pretty much all running backs. When on the rookie side of it, obviously we had Corey Davis, but he got hurt pretty throughout that season. He came back from the playoffs. Doesn't really matter NFL playoffs don't matter for fantasy. But even Christian Kirk, the guy Anthony Miller from who got drafted by the Bears, it's going to be a nice little addition for them. And they obviously have Allen Robinson coming in. They got Taylor Gabriel coming over from the Taylor Gabriel came over from the Falcons. They got Trey Burton coming over from the Eagles. So in the offseason, they got Cameron Meredith. Did not come back over the season. We'll see if Kevin White can continue to stay healthy. We'll see if Anthony Miller is going to be a guy who pushes him off the team. But it's basically all new faces for Mitchell Trubisky. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if you guys going to stay away from Bears, because the thing about receivers is that you got to have a quarterback to throw it to them. They got to be able to have good chemistry. You got to be able to have the ball there to catch. Running backs, they just hand it off to them and they can do what they want. That's why you don't have to worry about I got a guy like Anthony Miller coming in with a second-year quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky, who also has 3 new weapons on the outside as well. I think the biggest guy when it comes to receivers is Calvin Ridley, because he went to the perfect team, the absolute perfect team for him and the Atlanta Falcons. He's never going to get doubled. They have Sanu. They have obviously Julio Jones on the other side, and Matt Ryan isn't afraid to throw it to these guys, to anybody. He likes to spread the ball around. He'll get it to the open guy. He throws a very catchable ball. And Calvin Ridley, who has had some issues with ball security, had some issues with butterfingers or catching it, but he'll be getting a very sure, accurate passer in Matt Ryan, who is a guy who's going to be throwing darts out there, and he's going to be probably getting Ridley open a lot because, like I said, they're going to be doubling the 2 receivers and putting him in the bracket coverage, which means like usually you have a safety over the top, and you're going to let him run by you if you're a corner, because you're going to have the safety over the top for the deep route. You're going to have that corner for that underneath route. So it's interesting. You'll see. Ridley could catch 50 passes this year. We don't know, because he would. That's not bad for a rookie, honestly. Could be a late rounder, but there's a lot of different guys out there. And if you talk about a redraft or drafting for fantasy, he'd probably be a late round pick, or maybe a guy you get off waivers. I'm not saying waste a first round pick with him. I wouldn't waste a first round pick on any of these rookies. Maybe Saquon Barkley if there was nobody else left. But you never know what's going to happen. The Giants' offensive line, they got Nate Solder from the Patriots, this offseason, but that's about it. And we're gonna see if Eli likes to throw the ball to him. Obviously, he's gonna have Odell Beckham on his team as well, so they're gonna have some chances to get in the end zone a bunch this season. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen. But I think obviously the most value we're probably gonna see from a running back is gonna be Rashad Penny with the Seahawks. They'd like to run the ball there in Seattle. He's not really gonna have much competition. He's gonna be he's going to be their number 1 guy, I think, or even at least be decent flex starter for guys looking for value backs, because he's going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's going to have the skills for a 3-down back. He doesn't need to work on his pass protection. That's not really having much. It does have fantasy implications. Keeps you on the field a little bit. Gives you more opportunity, but all the Seahawks really have is another guy named Chris Carson. So he's still going to be the number 2 fantasy back for that team, or even for that division. You never know. It is a division with Todd Gurley and David Johnson, and even now Jerick McKinnon in San Francisco. So it's gonna be. We'll see what happens there. Darius Guice could be another guy. Redskins. They've had some success. Their running back kind of have flashing success when it comes to, like I said, Chris Thompson or Samaje Perine, Rob Kelly. It's kind of been like boom or bust, pick your poison when it comes to these guys on the fantasy side of it. But we have to figure that out as we go along here. Sony Michel is probably my number 3. It's probably my number 3 behind Rashad Penny and obviously Saquon. But I'd slot Sony Michel right there, number 3 underneath them when it comes to rookies, especially the running backs. But fantasy implications, I know he plays for the Patriots. I know it's kind of volatile, but he's going to have Tom Brady. He's going to have the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield a lot, especially for you guys out there in the PPR leagues. I feel like, I like to have at least one Patriots running back. You're going to hopefully pick the right one, but they have no Dion Lewis, and imagine him being the Dion Lewis of last year. Dion Lewis got in the end zone a lot last year and was a pretty darn good fantasy player. Another one, Kerryon Johnson. If he can be the number one guy in Tampa Bay, that's somebody else went to Tampa Bay. I don't know. Ronald Jones went to Tampa Bay. That's right. He's actually pretty good too. We'll get to him in just a second. But Kerryon Johnson went to Detroit, and with the Lions, he's going to be a guy who probably can be. They have Riddick still, but Kerryon Johnson is going to have to deal with fighting for that time on the field. I don't think you're going to probably have to stay away from him due to some lap traffic. They have obviously Amir Abdullah, LeGarrette Blount was added this offseason. Like I said, Theo Riddick, so he's going to have to fight for some. He's going to have to fight for some carries basically, unless they decide to get rid of Amir Abdullah over the summer. It's going to be interesting. He's going to have too much stuff, not going to get enough carries, not enough volume to be able to be viable in that offense. However, Ronald Jones, like I said, I was just going to talk to him. He's probably going to get in front of Peyton Barber and Shaquiz Rogers on that depth chart down there in Tampa Bay. He's getting a lot of comparisons to Jamal Charles coming out of college. So, he could be a guy who can be a starter right away for the Buccaneers and get a bulk of those carries and be a guy who could take some pressure off of Jameis Winston, who has a tendency to get a little under duress pretty quickly. Nick Chubb with the Browns. I'd stay. I don't know. Browns running backs have had good fantasy years before. I know when Isaiah Crowell was there, he had a pretty good year. Obviously, we've had Peyton Hillis, blah blah blah, in the past. But they have Duke Johnson. They signed Carlos Hyde. It's going to be kind of a crowded backfield. Getting Nick Chubb some carries. We'll see what they do with Duke Johnson. He's more of the pass catching running back. So I don't know if I wouldn't think about drafting Nick Chubb at all, wasting a draft pick on him. Christian Kirk went to the Cardinals late in the rounds. They have, they actually have, when they're going to have Josh Rosen out there, probably going to be getting the start coming off the season. We'll talk about Josh Rosen and his viability as a fantasy quarterback probably in the next segment. This time we're mostly doing those running backs and receivers, but I think that Christian Kirk could be a guy who could slot in there, and it's not that crowded of a room. Pretty much only have J.J. Nelson and Bryce Butler behind Larry Fitzgerald, so if he could beat out one of those two guys, he could find himself on the field quite a bit, and he's an explosive guy out there, and especially in the slot. So Christian Kirk, watch out for him. DJ Moore, that's the one thing. DJ Moore is a very talented. He was a second-round pick. Or actually, I think he was the first round. Yeah, first-round pick. He was the first wideout in the draft picked on Thursday by the Panthers late in that first round. And he could be a guy who will be more of a possession receiver, going to be able to get a lot of catches for PPR people out there. Going to be tough for him to get that volume, though, as you still have Devin Funchess. They don't have a shortage. Devin Funchess, Greg Olsen, the tight end. They got Torrey Smith in that deal from the Eagles in the offseason. Curtis Samuel comes over. Obviously, you still have a guy like Christian McCaffrey who loves to catch the ball out of the backfield. So a lot of options there. There's also, I'm talking about all these different top guys. So we forgot about Royce Freeman. He was the running back from Oregon, went to Denver, and he could be this year's guy when you're thinking about a guy to start off hot. Like Kareem Hunt did last year. He could be that guy who would slide right into that position at running back there in Denver and be a guy who can maybe compete with Booker, who Devontae Booker hasn't had that great of a start to his career, versus C.J. Anderson has. C.J. Anderson's had some very nice games, especially fantasy-wise. He can have some nice games, and he could be a guy who could split some carries with C.J. Anderson. That's Royce Freeman. So think about that maybe late in the rounds if you're trying to steal a running back maybe for the flex, as he's the guy who could definitely get some points there. I would think that he would be definitely a guy who could take some serious carries and get up there in the ranks of those Broncos running backs. They've had some issues trying to figure it out. So, throwing him back there and getting a lot of opportunities will just mean more points for him. All right. As we come to the end of this segment, I just want to touch on one more guy. It was actually Cortland Sutton, the receiver. He actually also went to the Broncos. I want to talk about the Broncos offense. I know they're going to have Case Keenum this year, and he's a viable starter, honestly, in the NFL. But he'll get a little more help from that thin air up there in Denver. But he's going to need a speedy receiver, and a guy who's going to have some value there in Denver. That's Cortland Sutton. go. And I mean, there's still Demarius and Emmanuel Sanders. They'll probably be getting open a lot as they're going to double up on Demarius and probably Emmanuel Sanders as well. And he'll probably get some chances to get some soft spots in the zone, or maybe get up on a safety or a linebacker coming out of the slot. So good think about there. I mean, we'll see his fantasy value probably is more in the long term as they go along his career. We'll probably be hearing his name on this show a couple more times throughout this season. So that'll wrap it up for this segment. We're going to talk about quarterbacks when we get back on the other side. But before that, we have these messages, so just stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back. GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. That last segment, we just went over some running backs and the top rookies coming out and looking like they might have a solid rookie season. Now we're going to talk about some quarterbacks. I know it's a fantasy football show, but now we're getting into the more NFL talk here. Just these quarterbacks are just too good not to talk about. And the fact that we're just going to throw some speculation out there. The way it shook out in this draft. Baker goes to the Browns. Sam Darnold goes to the Jets. Baker was their guy, but the Jets get Sam Darnold, who I think is actually going to have a better career in the NFL. The Josh Allen, as I expected and hoped, goes to the Bills, and then obviously Josh Rosen going 10th to the Cardinals, which actually probably the best thing that happened to Josh Rosen. Not going to any other team, but maybe Cardinals or Giants would have been an interesting thing for him, or maybe the Patriots coming up and getting him. The Patriots, I don't even know who they drafted a quarterback, I think, but it was some nobody. But yeah, so regarding the quarterbacks, who's going to start? Who's actually going to play? Who's actually going to get there first? Who's going to get a fantasy point first? That's the thing. It's not about being good or actually helping a team. I just want to know who's going to get a fantasy point first. Who's going to get that first yard? Who's going to get yardage? Who's going to get that first completion? Basically, who's going to see the field first because they're going to get points. They're too good for that. Too good to be that. I think that actually the Browns, the way they set it up, obviously, I think they think, we're going to start. People are, they're going to start Tyrod. They're going to start Tyrod Taylor before they get to go to the rookie. Maybe we'll see. Maybe. I mean, don't put it past the Browns to just start the rookie. Just sell jerseys. They started Johnny Manziel. Do you know Johnny Manziel has more wins? He's the only guy with 2 wins since in the last 3 or I think 4 seasons for the Browns. He's the only quarterback that has more than 1 win. He has 2 wins. He's the only guy. I thought it might be RG3. But no, RG3 has 1 win. But Johnny Football has 2 wins. He's the last quarterback for the Browns to get 2 wins. As a starter. But so you have Josh Rosen in Arizona. I think honestly, as much as you'd like to put him behind Sam Bradford for a year, have him learn. Sam Bradford's a good coaching kind of, has a coach's mentality kind of guy in the quarterback position. He can still do that with Josh playing. He could do it during the week, a prep for the game. He could do it during the game on the sideline. Josh just has better knees and is a younger guy. He should be out there playing. I think we're going to see that come spring or come training camp and come the preseason games. we're going to see how good Josh Rosen is and how, he said, these 9 teams that passed on me, he's going to have 9 mistakes. I'm like, okay, well, buddy, not all those teams needed quarterbacks. Yes. If there was any teams that passed on you, it may have been Denver. It may have been, the Browns got a different quarterback, and then the other 2 teams that picked quarterbacks. Everybody else who needed a quarterback either got one, or they were the Broncos and got a great pass rusher to go on the other side of the other great pass rusher, or they were the Dolphins and got kind of left out. Everybody else traded up and got their quarterback. The Bills did, and so did the Cardinals, trading up in front of that 11th spot where the Miami Dolphins were. I think Miami actually ended up getting a quarterback later in the draft anyway, so it all worked out for everybody. But those top 5 quarterbacks. Watch Lamar Jackson. Watch Lamar Jackson get the fantasy point first. Watch it happen. I would not be surprised whatsoever, because that's just how that's how I think the Ravens are feeling with Joe Flacco. I don't know. Honestly, it's whoever gets out there first. So Joe Flacco, it might not be Lamar Jackson, because Flacco will likely start opening day, very likely. And one of these rookies are going to start opening day. Whether it's Sam Darnold beating out Teddy Bridgewater in the preseason, whether it's Josh Rosen beating out Sam Bradford, whether it's Baker just being decided to make the starter over Tyrod. Because I don't think, honestly, in the preseason, I think that Tyrod Taylor's job is the most secure of him when it comes to losing it based off of merits. I think Tyrod Taylor has the best chance of not losing his job if it was based off merits. I think if it was just all 3 of those competitions, Darnold and Bridgewater, Rosen and Bradford and Taylor and Mayfield, I think of all those competitions, the only one that might not come down to talent or to actual on-field ability is the Browns, because it's just the Browns. They're going to want to start their rookie, the sexy rookie pick they got picked overall. Oh yeah, we're the Browns. We got our guy we wanted. Apparently, John Dorsey knew months ago that he wanted Baker Mayfield, so I bet you they start him, and has nothing to do with the fact that Tyrod Taylor can't get the job done, because Tyrod Taylor was a pretty good can be a very good quarterback. I think he's gone on winning streaks with the Buffalo Bills team before. So, but I think that the fact that you have the 2 quarterbacks that are still remaining for those other teams that are going to be battling it out with the rookie, whether it's Bridgewater or Bradford, are probably more likely to lose those jobs to the rookie than I think Tyrod Taylor would be if it was solely based off merits. And you threw it up there. I know Baker. I just think Baker's undersized. It's just those quarterbacks, and then Josh Allen, I think, actually has he's got AJ McCarron to go against. So it's just interesting. This is going to be talking about it all summer long, talking about which of these quarterbacks are going to start on opening day. I think Josh Rosen honestly has the best chance to start on opening day out of all 4 of them. Josh Rosen has the best chance to start on opening day because his quarterback has been much maligned quarterback. He had no renaissance last year with the Vikings before he got hurt, ultimately. But I think that, there's no reason why Josh Rosen can't start the season for the Cardinals. I think he's a better quarterback. He's going to outplay Sam Bradford in the preseason and in the spring. And then I keep saying spring training because it's baseball training camp, and to give Steve Wilkes no choice but to start Josh Rosen. But don't put it past Baker Mayfield. Don't put it past Baker Mayfield to impress just enough in preseason and in training camp to make Hugh Jackman and John Dorsey think, do we make him the starter? I think Sam Darnold, they might wait a couple days. I think he's going to actually take a little bit more time to, even though he might have the biggest upside in the NFL, he might take a little more time to develop through the passing and the fact that he has those ball security issues and the interceptions and stuff. He might take a little bit longer to beat out Teddy Bridgewater because of the fact that he went to the Jets. I think if he went to, give him a year. They're saying he's the most ready to go, but I think Josh Rosen, honestly, is the most ready to go start a game like now, quarterback. I think Sam Darnold could use at least maybe not even a full season, but maybe half a season or a couple weeks just to get acclimated. I think he's kind of still, and it's going back to the reason why he wasn't picked number 1 overall. I don't think the Browns didn't see him as somebody who could be the face of their franchise and be the savior for their franchise. They wanted somebody a little more charismatic, a little more cocky, has a little more moxie, and that was Baker Mayfield, and that's why I think they picked him. I think they picked him even knowing he may have not been. He was talented enough. That's the thing. He was talented enough for them. And if you're Josh Rosen, yeah, you maybe thought you're the best quarterback talent in this draft. You might think you have the best upside in this draft, but did you really want to go to Cleveland? Fantasy owners, did you want Josh Rosen to go to Cleveland? Really? No, thank you. I think him in Arizona. Now they got Christian Kirk. They got obviously an aging Teddy Bridgewater, though. Still need to find a tight end for him to throw to there in Arizona, but he could have a big upside in the future and become maybe another Aaron Rodgers or Matt Ryan kind of type in the NFL. And when you talk about those two guys, you're talking about top fantasy players. Maybe not this year for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's been going down the tubes when it comes to the old projections and evaluations for fantasy. But in this post-draft evaluation show, we're kind of just going over the quarterbacks in this segment. Next segment, we're going to go over how some defenses got better and talk about which team defenses have been improved through the draft. We'll do that in the next segment. But in this one, we're still kind of just chatting about these quarterbacks and the fact that, obviously we're kind of forgetting about some of the one that went last in the first round. That was Lamar Jackson. Like I mentioned him just a bit ago in the beginning of this segment, saying that he might be the first guy to see the field the first. I kind of take that back a little bit. I think it's still going to be Josh Rosen, just because he's going to beat out. He has the best chance of beating out the guy in front of him based off of merits, and then maybe it's also Baker because the Browns just want to start the rookie, regardless of how well they do. Either one, Taylor or Mayfield, do in the. I think if Baker doesn't have to just do terribly. If Baker does all right in the preseason and in training camp, I bet you he gets the starting job just because they want to start the rookie, and it's a storyline for them to keep them in the papers longer. If they start Tyrod, what if Tyrod does well? What if they start Tyrod Taylor and Tyrod does really good? And then you let Tyrod play the whole season, and then what? Do you keep Tyrod Taylor? Do you trade him? They've been very active in the trades. I bet you if that hypothetical comes true, I put the money on they trade him and let Baker start the next year. They didn't make the pick for no reason. That's my money right there. They hope they probably might be able to get something back for Tyrod Taylor, even though I think they just trade for him. He might be in a contract year anyways. Yeah, so he'll go sign somewhere else for big money. Or maybe they trade him mid-season. So we'll see if a team needs a quarterback. We never know. In the NFL, lots of stuff happens, whether it's injury, which we hate to see, but it happens, and quarterbacks go down. We'll see if Ryan Tannehill can make it through a whole season. No offense to Ryan Tannehill, but you've had two knee injuries. We've had some issues here. I just want to look through the quarterbacks that were drafted in this draft. And how they each stacked up. I know that there's definitely some teams that needed it. Teams that obviously needed a quarterback. Teams that needed just kind of have a guy in the back. I know that the Steelers drafted Mason Rudolph, and how they drafted Mason Rudolph and said that maybe this is the guy who we're gonna keep to be back behind Ben Roethlisberger and be a guy who can take over for Ben Roethlisberger in the future. So, there's definitely teams all over the place who needed quarterbacks, whether it was in the first round or not. I think, obviously Lamar Jackson going to the Ravens, they're going to kind of maybe transform in their team, and they're going to do it now. I think we're going to see Lamar Jackson before the season's over. So, as we're looking here, Mason Rudolph goes to Mason Rudolph went to the Steelers, and there was also Luke Falk went, I think, to the Bengals, and we obviously had Logan Woodside went late. Logan Woodside went like the 7th round. I think the people were thinking he might go a little earlier, but the Bengals got Logan Woodside. That's what I'm saying. Luke Falk went somewhere else. Where did Luke Falk go? I can't remember. I have my list here of all the quarterbacks, but Titans get Luke Falk with 109. They get Luke Falk in the same spot as Tom Brady was picked 199th in the 6th round. So but no, that could have been a steal for the draft. Looking like a guy who could be just sitting back there waiting, seeing just in case Mariota gets in some trouble or gets hurt or something like that. So the Titans having a guy like Luke Falk in their background, and they think that's they call it the Tom Brady pick. Obviously, it's always going to be the Tom Brady pick, the 199th in the draft. All right, enough of me ranting and trying to figure out which quarterback went where. I know there was a guy from Richmond, and he went somewhere. It was Kyle Luletta. Went to the Giants. Oh, that's right. The Giants got their quarterback. They have Webb from Cal, but Davis Webb from Cal. But now they have the guy from Richmond, Kyle Luletta, who they got in the 4th round. So that's where they got their quarterback instead of getting Sam Darnold in the 2nd round, the 2nd pick overall. That would have been. I think that would have set the tone. If Sam Darnold got picked 2nd overall, Saquon Barkley would have probably dropped to. No, I think he would have got picked by the Browns at 4. So Saquon's probably happy about that. All right. We'll be back with some talking about some defensive stuff and which teams have improved their team defense, and look at maybe some guys to pick for your IDP leagues out there. We'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA Podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back. GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. As much fantasy as we can mix in here as possible. We're talking about the NFL Draft and the outcome of this NFL Draft and how the implications will happen on your fantasy leagues. There are some guys who are already going to stack in, obviously, into these rankings, these pre-draft rankings. They're going to come out not soon, but sooner rather than later, when you guys are going to get ready for your draft prep. Obviously, do as many mock drafts as possible. There's so many scenarios, you never know what's going to happen. And as long as you know your friend, the biggest key for a fantasy draft is knowing your friends or knowing your teammates, knowing the people that are in your league. If you can get a gauge on what they like or what they pick, what they value, you can kind of start plotting out, mapping out your draft as you go. Not always a good thing to do as you go along in your draft. So we can talk about that in the next segment, maybe a little bit more. But this segment, we're going to go over some defensive stuff. I know the Browns. So the Browns, they decided to do a secondary versus pass rush. As the first defensive player in the draft was taken 4th overall. That was Denzel Ward out of Ohio State to the Cleveland Browns. He was really excited about that one, wasn't he? Wasn't he, guys? But the Browns defense now, obviously, it probably would have gotten better no matter what, whether they had picked Bradley Chubb or Denzel Ward. I think that I know Bradley Chubb was the pick that everybody's like, oh, they missed on him. They passed on him. Why did they do that? They needed a DB. Shutdown corners are extremely valuable, and they're valuable in fantasy, especially if you can get a defense where you're playing a guy who has a big receiver. So, for example, say somebody has Julio Jones and you're playing them this week. You can go pick up the Browns defense knowing they have Denzel Ward as just an example, and he can put a hand in shutting down Julio Jones. Not only do you, and maybe he gets a pick or the defense works out well, you get some points from your defense, but you're also helping limit the other. I mean, he's going to get limited no matter what, but it's helping out no matter what. So that guy's not going to get as many points. Anyways, shutting down. I just realized that philosophy doesn't really make any sense. You don't have to drive that. You don't have to have that defense. He's going to get shut down no matter what by Denzel Ward. Maybe he gets a pick off of him. Maybe you can set up your lead to get bonus points. I spoke too soon. But it was a cool idea. Denzel Ward to the Browns. Not a bad pick. I mean, I like pass rushers, but I also like interceptions. Interceptions are big, especially if you can get a guy like Denzel Ward who can be a big hitter, cause turnovers, get those picks, and be able to have the speed and ability to get back and take them to the house, or at least get them down into the red zone where you're going to give your offense a chance to score off of the turnover. Gotta like Denzel Ward. Obviously, your Denver defense has always been, I mean, it's been good for the last seemingly half decade here. With the whole no-fly zone. I know they lost a couple guys out of that no-fly zone. But they get a guy in Bradley Chubb to drop right to him to increase that pass rush, not the secondary, but the pass rush for the Broncos. I know they probably were looking at Denzel Ward also as that fifth pick, maybe to replace Aqib Talib in that corner position. So, I mean, not a bad pick by the Browns to take that. They kind of just swap picks there. They get Bradley Chubb, who is a big Von Miller fan. Gets to go play with the guy he's been trying to emulate, and that is Von Miller, which is pretty cool for Bradley Chubb. He's got to be feeling very motivated for that one. Good job, good pick right there, and good fit right there. When it comes to the Broncos, they're going to have some mean pass rushers on both sides of the defense. Good luck to AFC West teams out there and quarterbacks. Obviously, we have a couple. Only those guys who are mobile. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, new quarterback, first year. He's pretty mobile. And so is Derek Carr. And then Phillip Rivers. We'll see what happens to him. But he's pretty savvy out there. Can take a few hits as well. So Denver's defense, look for those increased sack numbers, and maybe even look at Bradley Chubb as a guy you pick as an individual defensive player, as he's going to be in there. Maybe even getting some cleanup sacks with Von Miller coming from the other side. All right. Another team that picked defense in the first round, in those first 10 picks, was we had a couple trades. I mean, obviously there was the fourth pick, Denzel Ward. Fifth pick was I'm trying to go through here in my head. Bradley Chubb was the fifth pick. The sixth pick was the Colts. That was Quentin Nelson, so they didn't go defense. Then the seventh pick was traded. That was Josh Allen. Oh yeah, eighth pick, Bears, Roquan Smith from Georgia. Great pick there. Kind of wish that he fell a little bit further to my undisclosed favorite team that I'm not a homer for on this show at all. Go Niners. But that's all I'm going to say. Kind of wish he fell one pick. It literally was one pick further. Niners ended up getting a good offensive lineman anyways, but that's neither here nor there. This is a defensive segment. But Roquan Smith will definitely make it their defense. That Bears defense is going to be pretty nasty this year. I don't know if they were able to shore up those cornerbacks there. As I'm looking at their defense depth chart here of their defense, but it looks like they're going to have that speedy linebacker out of Georgia slide right in there, which is going to be nice. He's a really good guy. Plays on pretty much any package you want. Can play third downs. Can blitz. Can cover. Has the speed to get sideline to sideline. Going to get lots of tackles. He'd be definitely a guy if you're looking at, depending on how you get scored with the individual defensive player, whether it's through tackles or has the interceptions or has to be something like that, but usually it's tackles. He's going to be a guy definitely to look at because they need some. He's going to need a lot of tackles. He's going to need a lot of tackles. He's going to be all over the field and everywhere. So he's going to see. I mean, look, they already have him on the depth chart, slid in to that first spot on the left inside linebacker. So it's going to be pretty nice. Playing with Danny Trevathan is going to be fun for him to play. I mean, on the cornerback, yeah. So right now, their cornerbacks are Prince Amukamara, who's he's a pretty good talent. And Kyle Fuller. I was thinking of it was Kyle Fuller, who they were able to get. I think last year in the draft they got Kyle Fuller, who's a pretty darn good player out of Virginia Tech. Right there. So yeah, he's been on the team for a little bit, but he's a pretty good corner. They have some good corners. I thought they might want to get another corner in themselves, but the other defensive players kind of dropped a little bit further, as we obviously had McClinchy go to the Niners at 9. The Raiders traded their pick to the Diamondbacks. Arizona Cardinals. I keep thinking baseball. The Diamondbacks. Cardinals at 10. They got Josh Rosen. The Dolphins picked at 11. The Dolphins, they really wanted a quarterback, didn't they? The quarterbacks really wanted the Dolphins really wanted that quarterback there. None of them dropped to them. I think the Dolphins went defense. Didn't the Dolphins get one of the big defensive guys? Why am I blanking on my draft order right here? Here we go. They got Minkah Fitzpatrick, from Alabama. So he's going to be interesting. He's definitely going to help their defense out. I don't know, but it's going to push it into that whole viable of like actually getting their defense. The thing with defenses is that you're going to be mixing and matching. My big pick, I think, was Derwin James for the Chargers. Their defense is already pretty good last year. They have a great pass rush. Obviously, and run support with Joey Bosa and Melvin. Why am I not thinking of his name? No, it's Melvin Ingram. There in the box there in the front seven. Now their secondary has been even increased. It could become even better as Derwin James did drop all the way to 17 to the Chargers, and they snagged him there. He was a great pick. He was probably graded up in the first round. I don't know. I think it was just kind of necessary and what people needed. A lot of players went needs over talent. So Derwin James was a safety, and the Dolphins liked Minkah better. He was the first safety picked, and there wasn't a safety in between him and James, so that's pretty good. Buccaneers did pick at 12. They got Vita Vea, defensive tackle out of Washington. He'll make that defense even better. I don't know, but there's big fantasy implications there. The same with the Redskins and the Saints. The Saints actually, their defense was top in the league last year as they became more of a running defensive team. They kind of made a reach. They traded way up from, I think they were 28th. They traded 13 spots or so up to they're 27th up to 14 to get Marcus Davenport, a long defensive end from the University of Texas San Antonio, and they're going to be kind of I've heard it been called a heat check pick. I've heard it been called all this different stuff when it's the Saints, who came off probably one of the best drafts ever last year, where their first 4 picks were, I think they got Marcus Latimer, the defensive back safety or great corner hitting safety player, had an amazing rookie season. They got Williams, who did make that one bad play against the Vikings in the playoffs, but he was very solid all throughout the season. They got Ryan Ramczyk, offensive lineman, and then they got Kamara. So 4 solid picks, 4 guys that were big parts of the team last year and getting them to the playoffs. So we'll see if they can do it again with a guy who nobody really thought was going to go this early, but he went 14th overall. That was Marcus Davenport from University of Texas San Antonio. Can make that defense even better, and they can add some pass rushes. If they just adding a pass rusher, you can't hurt that. Get after the quarterback, get some sacks, get some points for that team defense if you are a team that's looking for that. Packers, they also got a big corner, Jai Alexander, very talented corner out of Louisville. Gotta like that if you are a Packers fan. Also a team that if you're looking for, you gotta remember all this kind of stuff when you're looking for a team just to mix and match for defense. When you're looking for a defensive team to pick up and for one to drop, I would think about the Packers as they continue to get better on defense. Same thing with the Cowboys, getting the linebacker from Boise State. But Bills, their defense has always been pretty nasty. They get a really raw young linebacker from Virginia Tech and Tremaine Edmonds. He's only 19 years old, but he's quick and doesn't have that much drive to downhill to the ball, but is really good side to side. Diagnoses plays well. And can be a guy to help that defense there in Buffalo create some turnovers. That's all we need in fantasy, right? Is creating turnovers. You want to create turnovers and you want to limit points. That's how you get points in your defense. Obviously, you don't allow the other team to score, and get turnovers. So, also another guy, if you're looking at somebody to throw in there as a kind of a sleeper pick for an individual defensive player, think about Tremaine Edmonds. If you have a bunch of choices regarding, 8-5, if you do that big individual defensive player league where you have 8 guys, you could think about also Derwin James for that safety position. If there's nobody really left that you're kind of just looking for a safety to think out there. Okay, I'll try a rookie. You should try Derwin James. All right. That'll wrap it up for this segment. In the next segment, we're going to go over just kind of some basic news. We'll continue covering the draft and the fantasy implications of it, and we'll do that right when we come back after these messages.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, welcome back. GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, final segment here on a Tuesday. As we continue, that was abrupt. Okay. As we finish out the show here on a Tuesday, it is good to be talking to you guys about some football talk. Talking to you guys about football talk. Talk, blah, blah, blah. So with this draft, there was obviously deep quarterback draft, deep running back draft, which is big for fantasy. Not so much. We did have a tight end go early. Hurst went to the Ravens as they're looking to replace Dennis Pitta. Definitely a guy who's been a stalwart for them on defense, or make that not on defense, but on offense. It was the Ravens. I think picked him. They picked him pretty early. Yeah, Hayden Hurst, 24th overall. And then they got back in that first round with the last pick in the draft, getting Lamar Jackson, number 32. So you got to like that if you are a Ravens fan, maybe thinking that you're going to get that dynamic quarterback out of Louisville in the purple and black. So he's going to look pretty good in those uniforms. Anyways, Lamar Jackson, can't wait for him to play, honestly. If there was anybody I want to see play like sooner rather than later, it's Lamar Jackson, I think. And I think he's going to be having some serious fantasy implications. Not this year, maybe not next year, but the year after for sure, when he gets on the field and have a full off-season, full training camp, full preseason as the starter. He gets behind Joe Flacco and just nice little transition, or not so nice. The Ravens, I've heard, are not very happy with Joe Flacco right now anyways, but you could definitely be seeing some guys who you could see a guy like Lamar Jackson just take that position and just run with it, taking that opportunity. All right. I didn't really talk about Josh Allen all that much. Fantasy implications of Josh Allen, just too much. I just don't know. There's too much to not know. He went to the right spot for himself. He went to Buffalo. That's where he needed to go to be able to take that strong arm and throw it through the wind and cut through the snow and sleet and hail that played. He played outdoors in Wyoming in the cold weather. He knows how to deal with it. So Buffalo's got some weapons, obviously, with Shady McCoy. We'll see how his touch. That's what I'm really interested to see also, is how he can, if Shady's going to stay long enough to see Josh Allen on the field, which I think Josh Allen actually will get on the field this year. That's the thing. I think he's going to get on the field this year, and he might be a guy who might just pop, and all of a sudden, oh crud, he's throwing a lot of touchdowns. He's getting points. Somebody is going to pick him up, because all it takes is like 1-2 weeks, and you see it trending up with 2,000 ads or 3,000 ads across the fantasy fantasy spectrum with all the different platforms that we use our fantasy for. So whether it's Yahoo, ESPN, or whatnot. So lots of different things that could be happening. I think Josh Allen, you never know. I think he also could be a bust, absolute bust. Honestly, he could be getting there and a guy who just doesn't get the playbook's too much for him. He can't make the throws. He can't. I mean, if Shady McCoy loves to catch the ball in the backfield, be able to throw to a running back out of the backfield, you got to have great touch. I don't think he has the touch in order to do that. So, got to be tough to. I mean, got to be excited and worried if you're a Bills fan, because I mean, you got the guy who can play in the weather that he needs to play in, but does he have the refined qualities of a quarterback in order to continue and have a great season? I mean, they're looking for the next Jim Kelly here. Jim Kelly had touch. Jim Kelly threw the ball on a freaking line right to the receiver at any point in the I mean, he was a prototypical West Coast passer. That's what they did. And even watch those Buffalo Bill highlight shows, he would throw absolute rockets between the numbers, between defenders in these tight little windows. And we'll see if Josh Allen can do that, because he's had definitely some accuracy issues. Can throw the ball as far as you need him to throw it, obviously. But yeah. Him in Buffalo was where I thought he could go, where I thought he was the best fit for him, just based off of some weather stuff, and I mean the fact that he has some weapons around him that he can use. But Buffalo has kind of gotten rid of they had a bunch of wide receivers who they could help him out with. I know they still have they have that Zay Jones, I think, but he's had some issues with his performance and different stuff off the field. But I mean, I think that he just really needs to. If he gets on the field this year, he's going to have Shady McCoy. He's going to be able to use. He's going to use him to his advantage to be able to keep Shady happy, is being able to throw him in strikes. I mean, they got Kelvin Benjamin, they got Zay Jones. I mean, having a big target like Kelvin Benjamin is really going to help. I think him and Kelvin Benjamin might be the guys to watch when it comes to playing this year. If Josh Allen plays this year, it's going to be a good tandem for him, having a big 6'5" target to throw to Kelvin Benjamin. So maybe Kelvin Benjamin, that'll turn him into a fantasy. I mean, I know he was a big fantasy name. I wouldn't draft him now. The receivers are tough. You got to when you draft a receiver, you got to draft a quarterback. Basically, too, you got to think about the quarterback when you're thinking taking a receiver. You got to think about, okay, who's throwing to him? How open is he going to be? I don't know how open he's going to be. What's going on here? All right, we've kind of gone over a lot of stuff in this show. I think we're going to cut it like 10 minutes short here. We're going to go at 55 for you today on this fantasy show. We've gone over a lot of stuff, whether it's defense, offense, all these top rookies that are coming out this year. In the next show, I'm going to really get that thing working with the simulator and get it going for you guys, so we can do some individual defensive player simulations. And I'll do maybe some regular simulations as well as we go along here. Maybe I can get one now that will. I don't feel like sitting through 17 rounds right now, even though it's all pretty much automatic. But we'll do that on Thursday. I'll save it for Thursday. As today, we went over all those top rookies. I know Saquon Barkley is going to be a guy who's going to plug and play. I like Ronald Jones, and I like Sony Michel, as well as and Rashad Penny. Those are my four guys to watch coming into the season as picks that you probably will make in your drafts. These are guys you're probably going to go in the draft in the fantasy drafts. Whether Saquon goes in the first round, I think it's a little bit of a stretch for him. I think he's more of a third round guy. Value guy at third round, maybe second round if you really want to get him, because it depends. It depends. These guys you can get impulsive when you're drafting. You can get like, oh, I really want him, so I got to take him at this point. Or you can think about what your buddy or your fellow fantasy player in your league, whether you play with friends or not, is going to take him if you're picking right in front of him. Kind of read his mind, like, okay, is he going to take him this pick? What's going on? how's it going to work out. So you can try and speculate as much as you want, but until the actual pick and he hits the field, you'll never know how valuable your pick was, especially when it comes to picking rookies. There's some shoe-ins. There's some guys like our veterans, like those guys who, okay, I got him. That's some points. That's 20 points a week. Boom, boom, boom. Maybe even he'll explode for 40 one week or something like that. So there's guys that are more sure bets than others. So you got to figure that all out. Obviously, when we're talking rookies, we're talking a lot of speculation and a lot of college film. I know if you had Saquon Barkley in college, if there's fantasy football for college, Saquon would be a great fantasy running back. We'll see if he can translate it to the NFL. We'll see if any of these quarterbacks can translate it to the NFL. I think the best chance is Josh Rosen right now, because the way the people he's got around him with David Johnson and the receivers like Fitz and even Christian Kirk, a rookie on the other side. You have the old man and the young man, and then you have I think who is Brown in there as well. So I think Josh Rosen has the best chance to be the impact fantasy guy at the the most quick. So we're going to cut it out. Yeah, only not 10 minutes short, 5 minutes short. We're going to sign off here at 55. And we'll come back on Thursday with some more fantasy talk, some more football talk as everything is coming to fruition here. Maybe some talk about some guys that are undrafted, but it's hard to. We got to speculate. It's all speculatory here as we come down the end of this spring season and get into the summer until we hit the road for training camp. So until then, I'll be back on Thursday for more fantasy talk. So everybody enjoy some football. We watch the draft, think about the draft, talk about the draft. Enjoy your sports. I'll see you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.